Hi friends! Today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a watercolor. I had a friend who told me she wanted me to paint a unicorn, and so I was inspired. So that's my preliminary sketch, and we're going to see if we can make that translate to a beautiful watercolor today. I've already set up my space. I have my watercolor paper. I tape it down so that it doesn't get all warped and bendy. I have my favorite brushes. This one is a little bit larger for more of a wash. These two are both smaller so that I can do details. And this one is a little pointier, so I really enjoy both of these brushes, so I use them a lot. I have my pencil. This is actually a woodless graphite, and I'm going to be using that to create the sketch. I also have water. I have a little bit of a palette here. I have my paints. And we're about ready to get started with the drawing. Alright, so for me this is kind of the hardest part, the actual drawing of it, just because I feel like I'm a much better painter than I am a drawer, but let's give it a go. My horn was crooked. See, I told you, so this really is the hardest part for me, is the initial drawing, the initial sketch. Let's try that again. Now, my aunt is a brilliant watercolor artist. I admire her incredibly much, and one tip that she gave me before I started this was that after I do the initial sketch, I should take a rubber eraser and take off some of the loose graphite. So it's almost like I'm erasing, but just very lightly. And that way the graphite is not going to affect my colors when I start laying my colors down. Especially since we're using watercolor, watercolor will pick up that loose graphite and spread it around and make shadows where I don't want them. So this was a wonderful tip. I don't know that I would have thought about it had my aunt not said something. So we are just picking up all of that loose graphite, and now the drawing is still there. I can see it, but it's a lot lighter. So once we add the paint, it's gonna look a lot better and a lot more painterly also. So now we can start painting. There's many different watercolor techniques, and I don't know that I'll go over all of them in this video. There's wet and wet, there's the dry brush, there's all kinds of them. The biggest thing with watercolor though is that you have to have the correct ratio of water to pigment, and that can be tricky to get used to. I'm still getting used to it, but we're just gonna kind of go for it right now. Now that we have completed the unicorn, I love how she looks. I want to add a background, and I already stenciled out my circle. I want a rainbow background, and I want it to be a very light wash rainbow. So I'm going to do a wet on wet technique for the background. I'm going to take water, just clean water. I went and cleaned out my water cup, and I'm going to add water to the background everywhere that I'm going to want to put my background gradient color. So you just want to wet down the paper. You don't want too much, but you don't want too little water either, because you don't want it to dry before you're done working with an area. So I am adding a good amount of water around my circle. I'm going to do one side at a time, just because I don't want my water to dry too much. It's a little much up top. And I have already put in my palette here a rainbow of colors that are watered down a little bit. That way they are lighter colors. And then I'm just going to start, I don't think I want to use that brush. I want to use this brush. This is a big, fluffy brush. I'm going to get it wet. And I'm going to start with the red. More of a pink, but that's kind of what I want. I want the light rainbow gradient. And I'm just going to lightly brush it on. And then I'm going to go to the orange. I'm going to go ahead and let those bleed into each other, because I do want it to be a rainbow gradient. Yellow. And then I mixed up kind of a fuchsia pink color, just for the bottom, to bring it back towards that red. Now I have all those colors down. I'm gonna rinse off my brush. And then I'm gonna come back in here and fine tune the circle and the gradients. So now another thing that I love to do, because I'm just a little crazy and I just like the effect, is I like to add splatters and splotches and things like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a little bit of that. So I have to decide on colors. I think I want to add some yellow splotches, some yellow splatter. So I'm just good. So I just wet my brush, dipped it in my yellow, my bright yellow, and then I'm just going to tap my brush. And if I wanted to, and I think I will for the rest of the colors, I can protect my unicorn so that she doesn't get any splotches on her. I'm not going to have quite so much water on the brush this time, and I'm going to add some purple. So I'm going to put a little of that on the purple, pick up a little bit, make sure there's not too much, but I want to add some purple. So I'm just going to splotchy splotch a little bit of purples. Another thing too, if you notice, so on this side, the splotches are, or the splatters are staying pretty tight. And over here, they're bleeding a lot. And that is because this side of the paper is still way wetter than this side of the paper. So what I think I'm going to do here, clean off the brush, actually, and I'm going to take a different brush. I have this water spot right there. I'm just going to take a little bit of yellow, just so that this kind of evens out like some of those splotches. There we go. And I am now going to wait to add the rest of my splatter until this side dries. Now the painting, the surface is dry enough, I can add more of my splatters and splashes. So I'm going to go ahead and protect the unicorn. And I'm going to wet my brush. I think I want to add some, I already added a little bit of purple, but I think I'll add a little more purple, especially on this side. Add a little bit of the red, because I love the way the red looks. Pretty. And some blue, my favorite blue, which is this blue. Just a little bit on each side. And then I might add a little bit more yellow just to lighten it up, make it kind of look like almost like fireflies or sparkles, you know? All right, that looks really good. I'm liking what that's giving me. And then if I take this up, got that beautiful bit there, is I want to add some definition to the circle around our unicorn. I think I want it to be purple. The other thing that I really like to do with watercolor is add more splats. So what I'm going to do is, I think with some of this purple, a lot of water over here, I'm just going to add that dot right there. Then I'm going to take a straw. It's a silicone straw, so it's very bendy. I'm going to do this. Yes. And then I think I want to do the same thing over here. pigment. Yes, and then we're gonna do, I think with blue, we're gonna do one right there. A bit more yellow, because the yellow I really feel like is kind of a sparkliness. All right, and then you see that high concentration of water right there with the yellow. I'm gonna make that spread. Oh, and look what it did to the eye. I like that. I really do. And so I feel like it looks like she's winking. And so we're gonna leave that for sure. Only this time we're going to let it totally dry, 100%, because then I'm gonna go in with a fine liner and I'm going to add some definition. So for the next step in this painting, I am going to use a fine liner or multiple fine liners, and I am going to add some detail to this. What I've already done is tested out some of my fine liner pens that I have, and I've chosen which ones I'm actually going to use and which ones I'm going to just forget about for this project. So I did that already.